The March 12th special council meeting. We are reconvening at 6:12 p.m. And we have a map now up on the screen. Well, it's actually a photo, a topical photo. Are there any questions based on the photo that you see, or any other questions for Jonathan regarding the affected area or the concerned area?
I have no questions regarding...
Councillor Peterson?
I have no questions regarding the map, Your Worship. I don't know if anybody else does, but if they want to deal with that first.
Councillor Montgomery?
Not about the map specifically, no.
Another question for Jonathan, Councillor Montgomery, or?
No, actually, if there's a representative from Lambert Village, I wouldn't mind asking them a question.
Thank you.
Would you mind stating your name for the people watching at home?
It's Marilyn Galvin, and I am currently the president of Lambert Village. This thing with the road, when it snows, these people can't drive in there. It's myself alone. I got stuck twice. It's 100 feet, and you watch the graders go by the road all the time. All it would be is one swipe, because if you, all they had to do is push to it's all open. They just got to make one path. That's it. And in their case, it's the only entrance into this building, not like the other senior homes in places in Strathmore. They have multiple, at least two in all of them. If there was another entrance, it might be a little bit different. We do hire Landscape Plus presently to push our snow, but they will not do the road, of course, because they're not allowed to do the road. So I don't know, personally, it's a simple little thing, and it would take like maybe 7 minutes for one tractor just to make one path that these people, these 70 to 85-year-old people can get their vehicles in there, you know? And then the other thing is they get stuck. Well, now they got to try to get their walker out to get across to go get help if nobody's coming. So it's just it makes no sense that it just wouldn't be done when a grader goes by first thing in the morning, almost every morning, going to where they have to go to. And I understand that you have a big area to do, and I understand you have to set out standards as far as level 1s, 2s, 3s, however you call them. I don't know. But the fact is, this is seniors, and they're not asking for much. They're just asking to get into their place. They're asking that the ambulance can get in there. I understand now. I was only told this, that once an ambulance did get stuck, and maybe we should have went and got some letters from them, because they're there, like sometimes twice, 3 times a week. Lady just fell when I was driving in the other day. I had to call them. Now there's a snowbank there, like, what do you do? You know, like, it's just, I think personally myself, I think it's a necessary thing that they're not asking for much.
Thank you.
That's good.
Councillor Montgomery, I think, has a question for you.
Oh, did you? I didn't even let you ask the question.
That's okay. Thank you. So my one question I have is, sounds really loud right now. You mentioned in this document here, the one that's sent to the town of Strathmore here, that how did you word it exactly? You mentioned like wanting to, that you're petitioning the town for an understanding or a partnership. Do you want to elaborate on what you meant by that?
Well, currently, our in-house landscaper, he plows that sidewalk every snowfall, the town sidewalk along the road. So I guess the partnership is there. We'll continue to that. We're paying someone to do that. We just can't get anyone that'll do the road for us. So that's, I guess, is where this comes up with partnership. Like, we're doing our part. Now we're asking the town to do theirs.
Okay. I would like to make a motion if that's all right.
Okay.
So I will move that council direct administration to bring the addition of Park Lane Way to the snow management policy discussion when that occurs next, please.
Okay, and did you want to speak to that motion?
Just that, you know, it's very important to me that the town of Strathmore do its utmost. You know, we do strive to provide good customer service, and that's kind of the top priority for me a lot of times, is making sure we're providing good customer service. And so at the very least we can do is we can look at this idea and figure out, you know, the details and figure out what, you know, what it's going to take, and hopefully we can meet you somewhere and
Wonderful.
fulfill.
That's
yeah.
all we're asking.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
asking for that. Thank you.
Question for administration or the SLT. Do you folks know when the next snow management meeting might be? CAO Scoble?
Well, we do it anywhere from June to September. I think we'll probably bring it back in June. But I would suggest maybe the motion talks about public roads and not private roads. We're not, I believe this is a private road, but we'll confirm that.
No, it's not a private road.
Well, we'll double check that, but yeah.
Okay, we will check on that as far as a public or private road. And then sometime in June, possibly that snow removal meeting will occur. And then we'll go.
No, just, I think it's fine as is consideration in the annual snow review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, Councillor Peterson?
I just,
And then Councillor Wiley.
thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that, you know, that even though the petition was deemed insufficient, you're still here as a delegation. And so, you know, I appreciate Councillor Montgomery's motion to bring the matter forward for information and recommendation sufficient for council to make a decision, and then we can know that this is a public roadway, and understand that, you know, that the way forward is probably far beyond this, because we know that from now till 2045, the senior population in this community is going to advance dramatically, and there are going to be a lot of things like this that we're going to have to address. So having a process in order to be able to do this is probably not a bad idea. And I think that a friendly amendment maybe in this motion would be that it be brought back prior to September 30th, and then it's dealt with in the area of this, or in the realm of this council, and not a future council.
Sounds
That's just a
great.
recommendation.
I
If
appreciate
Councillor Montgomery would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Councillor Montgomery?
I'd like to amend the motion.
Sure. And then we can vote on the amendment and then finish up with the vote. I have Deputy
So
Mayor
I would move
Emeritus
the-
Wiley.
I would
No?
move the amendment, Your Worship,
Okay.
to have the a date put into the motion saying to bring the matter back prior to September 30th, 2025.
Okay, I think once people put their names in for running, we don't have any more meetings after the middle of September. So does that affect your motion at all?
I would suggest whatever our last council meeting is in
Thank you.
September.
Thank you,
I
CEO
think it'd be
Scoble.
about
Yeah.
September 18th, but Jonathan could probably check right now.
Yeah. And I know you'll have it back before that, just so that there is some certainty.
I'm good.
It's the 17th.
Thank you. So your motion then is to amend Councillor Montgomery's motion to add the date before September 17th. Any discussion on the motion to amend Councillor Montgomery's motion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And now we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Wiley?
Yeah, I'll be voting in favor of this motion. I think Councillor Montgomery worded it really well too, much better than I was going to. I particularly appreciated Marilyn Glavin's remarks. This is just a very reasonable request. There's only one road access here, and then the difficulty of hiring somebody to come in and remove the snow from this public roadway. I get that. That's a unique situation. Originally, I'd felt that, oh, well, if we do this, we're going to have to do all of them. But I think, not that I'm totally against that either, but I think that this is a very reasonable request. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Any further discussion or comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. We move now to item 4.2, Voluntary Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework, or ICF, which is on page 13. Jamie, are you speaking to this one?
Sure, I can speak to it briefly. So through the chair, council of course met with the villages earlier this month regarding areas where we could collaborate more. So this is simply administration asking for council's direction to proceed to develop terms of reference to kind of start to build an ICF with those villages to look at areas where we could share costs and revenues and look at ways we can help each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Questions for Jamie? Councillor Wiley?
I have two different questions for Jamie. So could you give me examples of some ways in which this could benefit the town of Strathmore?
Through the chair, I'll give a couple of simple examples. We did, for the last couple of years, we have been doing some assistance with, I think, street sweeping for one of the villages. So anytime we can do a service like that, it can reduce our per capita costs, something like that. That's a minor example. Another example is just we look at how we can share large facilities and how we can make sure those costs are shared rather than just borne by one municipality.
So you said a way that it would benefit Strathmore is if we swept their streets? Is that what you said?
Through the chair, yes, and then there would be obviously a cost to that, and they would share in that cost. So we would be paid for the service.
I see. You're saying it'd be a revenue generator.
Correct.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
if I could just jump in, Jamie, we did this last winter, and I think we're planning to, or last spring, and we're planning to do it again this winter, and they did pay us. We had revenue last year, correct?
Through the chair, yes.
And also sharing large facilities could be a revenue generator for the town of Strathmore.
I mean, there's lots of details you'd have to work out, but potentially.
Councillor Peterson? Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Councillor
I had
Wiley, you had a second question.
Yeah,
My
that's
apologies.
okay. So follow-up question then, do you have any estimate on how many hours of administration time it would take to prepare this intermunicipal collaboration framework?
Through the chair, we would probably start with a template that we did use. We developed one recently with Wheatland County. So we would start with that template and then just build on that.
Through the chair, if I might as well. So we would craft an initial terms of reference with the other administrations. Then we would come back and work probably a joint meeting of the councils, right? So the ultimate effort will depend on, I guess, how much the councils want to populate it, right? It could be 3 or 4 items you want to work on. It could be 10 or 12. So ultimately, it'll be the councils that decide how much work goes into it until conclusion.
So it just sounds to me then like in summary, I'm hearing potential, reward, small cost.
Yes, for the preparation of it would just be staff time.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson and then Councillor Wegener.
Your Worship, I know that Councillor Wiley wasn't able to attend that meeting, but some of the things that we talked about in terms of this ICF were shared services and resource management, collaborative purchasing agreements, emergency preparedness, opportunities for economic development and regional tourism, joint marketing ventures in terms of farmers markets, developing co-working spaces and incubators for local entrepreneurs, environmental sustainability, renewable energy, seniors transportation, enhancing internet connectivity, collective efforts through collaborative service providers, health and social services, cooperative processes for improved service across our district, and education and workforce development, and also cultural and recreational collaboration and technology and innovation sharing. So those were just some of them. There were a lot more than that, but those were just some of the ones that came around and about at that meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Wagoner.
Yeah, just some of the things with this ICF. I like the idea of it. We already have some things in partnership with the villages as far as the emergency REMP, the Wheatland Regional Emergency Management Partnership. I think the partnerships are a good way to get things done, include the smaller villages that may not have the services, and then we can find some way for them to reciprocate. But my next comment would be, we have had meetings a little bit with Chestermere, and maybe not this go around, but at one point I'd like to see Chestermere involved, or us involved with an ICF with them as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wegener, and we've developed a really good relationship with Mayor and Council from the City of Chestermere, so that's an interesting concept. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, has administration heard back? Obviously, if our council is discussing this, their councils will be discussing it as well. Have we heard back from any of the villages on whether they've also been interested in committing to this?
Not as of yet, but of course that was an outcome of the meeting that, you know, each council needs to decide and give its direction to its administration. So we'll touch base with them, but I expect those would be forthcoming very shortly.
Absolutely, thank you. I know that we only met a couple of weeks ago, and I'm maybe being a little impatient, so I appreciate that those things take time. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I will move the council direct staff to work with the administration of Standard Hazard Rockyford to develop terms of reference to guide the preparation of a voluntary intermunicipal collaboration framework between the communities.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Wiley?
I am planning to support this motion. It's with great hesitancy, though. I am always concerned that when you're working with much smaller partners like the villages, that the potential is there for us to be subsidizing them. And so when I am taking a look at the ICF, I'll be really looking out for the fact that it's beneficial for both partners, beneficial for the villages as well as for the residents, the taxpayers of Strathmore.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Any further comments or discussion? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We move now to item 4.3, Land Use Bylaw amending bylaw number 24-14, Garden and Garage Suites. Chuck, good evening and welcome. And Chuck, just before you start, I know this is a definite about face from me, because I was the one who brought this up back in 2021, and I know your staff, you and Kate and your staff, have worked really hard on this project, and I appreciate all the information you were able to bring forward, all your efforts. My reason for bringing this forward is that a lot has changed between 2021 and 2025. We are on the cusp of massive growth. We've already seen some multi-unit housing on Centennial Avenue start. We've got at least 3 or 4 more multi-unit housing projects in different stages of development. We have the Ranch subdivision that's ready to go. Edgefield is working towards building permits and approvals on that. We have the north end of Strathmore Lakes. We have Edgefield, Westerkirk, who have bought, I believe, 4 quarter sections in our town boundaries. So the environment has changed to me. The housing environment has changed, and I don't see the necessity that I once saw. And I have paid attention to the petition that has gone around, and I've paid attention to residents who have reached out to me personally. So that's why I brought it forward, but I hope you realize that I totally appreciate everything you did and your staff did, and I I don't want you to feel that this was a waste of time, although it must feel like that a bit. So we're glad you're here, Chuck, and you can present to us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I don't have a formal presentation prepared. If requested, staff can prepare a land use bylaw amendment to remove garden suites from the land use bylaw, garden and garage suites. Thank you for council's discussion.
Thank you. Comments and discussion on this? Councillor Peterson, and then
I just have a question, and it very well may not be a fair question, and so you can opt out. So we've heard about the controversy in Calgary around garden suites, and we've heard the issue about, developers coming in, buying up homes. Do you know if that is an actual thing that's happening in the city of Calgary, or is it just a fear that it might happen?
Maybe I'll look to someone else to respond, maybe Jamie.
I don't know if it's
I don't know myself.
I mean, we don't have any stats. I haven't seen any stats. I would suggest it is a bit of a fear of the unknown, but couldn't say definitively.
And my follow-up question to that then, when we set this bylaw, that wasn't a consideration. I've since watched petitions at the City of Calgary in their meetings and the concerns that citizens have brought forward regarding that momentum that developers could gain, and they articulated the issues that had happened in metropolitan Toronto and Vancouver and the accompanying problems. I haven't been able to find any examples of it in small towns anywhere. But in terms of that, is there a way within that bylaw would there be a way to articulate it in the bylaw that would not be able to happen? Is there any way to prevent it in the existing bylaw or through adding to the existing bylaw amendment?
It's a good question, Councillor Peterson. I don't believe so. It has to do with the ownership of the lot, and sometimes we don't even know when that changes hands a lot of the time, so it could change without our notice,
So if we had developers coming into our community and we saw that as an eventuality, we could then at that time also withdraw the bylaw if we didn't do it today. All right.
And yeah.
But I think that might be problematic if you wait until someone is coming in or showing signs of wanting to do a developer coming in to increase housing in a subdivision. That could be pretty controversial at the time.
We should leave debating for,
Okay, sure. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Peterson?
No, Your Worship. I was just wondering if we needed a motion to bring it back at a specific time.
Okay, that's a good point. Deputy Mayor Mitzner, do you have a question, or did you want to? I have a question. Okay, question for Chuck. Go ahead.
So can you confirm for me that this is not a blanket zoning for the town of Strathmore?
Yeah, it's not a blanket rezoning of the town of Strathmore. We added a discretionary use to some of our low-density residential districts.
Okay, and then the next question, if and when it became a problem, could we not do the downtown core as a DC zoning, direct control?
That's an option, Councillor Mitzner. We can pick and choose what zones these go in.
To protect the town of Strathmore, because I feel we're going backwards. We've worked on this project for 10 plus years, the businesses and the residents. I don't think it's apples to apples. I don't think it's the same product that the developers are producing, the multifamily. This benefits the taxpayer. We're creating a maximum of 1 or 2 units, being a carriage suite or a basement suite, to revitalize our downtown. So I will not vote to rescind this bylaw. Thank you.
Councillor Wegener.
I just have a couple of questions for you, Chuck. So far, and maybe you mentioned it, and I was just looking at my notes here, but has anybody applied for any of these garden suites?
We've had 0 applications for garden suites in the last 10 plus years. Thank you.
And then my second question is, there are some residents here that have cottage houses. Is this kind of Is this the same deal as the garden suites in the?
Yeah, they go by many names, Councillor Wagner, accessory dwelling units, carriage houses, garden suites, garage suites, there's different names, but they're all kind of the same thing.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And again, that bylaw has been passed years ago. Those houses are there, so I mean, that's not going to affect anything there. I think that was all, thanks.
Councillor Wiley with a question, and then Councillor Langmaid.
Yeah, just a clarification for the people at home. I'm not sure if Councillor Mitzner meant that by blanket rezoning, it is the town-wide, correct? It's all low-density residential town-wide that meet the strict criteria.
That's correct, but we haven't changed anybody's zone per chance. We just
Correct.
added a discretionary use.
So all the town of Strathmore that meet the criteria of low-density residential, if they meet the criteria, the low-density zoning now allows them to develop. It's not just for the downtown.
Councillor Langmaid, and then Deputy Mayor Mitzner with a question.
Thank you, Worship. Chuck, I just want to make sure I understand something here in the report. So these are discretionary uses, meaning that our development authority would be the one reviewing these and ensuring that they aren't interfering with somebody else's property, even if they are an approved discretionary use. If it might negatively impact an adjacent property in a way that the development authority thinks it would, that authority is there to say no to that development. Is that correct?
Councillor Langmead, that is correct. Yes, it's a big difference from a permitted use. Say a permitted use, we're obligated to approve. Discretionary uses, we take on a case-by-case basis. There's two very important points in the report. In staff's opinion, we wouldn't approve a discretionary use which unduly would interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere or affect the use, enjoyment of the value of neighboring properties and land as well. So if both of those things were to happen, we likely wouldn't support an application for a garden or garage suite. That decision can be appealed, and then that decision can be appealed, and then that decision would be then made by the Subdivision Development Appeal Board.
Thank you. That was going to be the second part of my question, was that if someone, say a neighbor, for some reason disagreed with you and thought, no, this does interfere with, the enjoyment of my property, there is a pathway of being able to appeal these and take them to the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board to be reviewed and ruled on through there, correct?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Langmaid. And to clarify, when a decision is made on a discretionary use development permit, adjacent landowners are notified via Canada Post, and there's a 21-day appeal period on them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Langmaid. Just before I go back to Deputy Mitzner, what are the things, Chuck, that would be some of the earmarks or some of the warning signs for not possibly approving a discretionary use of a garden or secondary suite?
Well, I think the biggest one, we've got a list of regulations in the land use bylaw. The biggest red flag for us, Mayor Fuel, would be if the garden suite application didn't meet any of those regulations or conflicted with any of those regulations. I think the biggest one is probably parking. If the site is too narrow or too narrow, it's sometimes hard to get another parking stall in there, and we would probably not approve a permit for that because it would be violating the regulations of providing that parking stall. There's another, a couple other regulations in that bylaw 2414 that we would also consider. I'm just reading in front of me here. So on smaller lots, we wouldn't be supporting them. On lots less than 10 meters wide, we wouldn't be supporting them. Garden suites, garage suites must have the same residential character as the other buildings in the neighborhood. There's separation distances and setbacks and all that kind of stuff too. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mitzner, and then back to Councillor Wiley.
Okay, I just have a comment for the gallery and the people at home.
We have to stay with questions, is what I was reminded about. This is a question point of view, and then when we have
I
a
was
motion,
just going to share information, no?
it's a question. This is a question period before, but you can discuss or make comments after a motion possibly gets on the floor. That's, I believe, what Councillor Montgomery pointed out improperly. Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, so when we say it's just a small number, the way I remember it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it correct to say that about 20% of the low-density housing then, or residential, sorry, would actually qualify for this?
Yeah, they would have the ability to apply for a development permit, Councillor Wiley. Right now, anybody in town can apply for a garden suite, but it would be through council. And if we remove these regulations, people would still be able to apply for these things, but the decision would be made by council instead of the approving authority. So you're right, it's about 20% of lots in town. But these regulations changed the way that we would process them as a town, as a municipality, the applications for them.
And then the second part of that, and I remember this from Claude Brown's petition, is that while it sounds like 20%, and I remember at the time I thought that seemed very reasonable, I think the petition point was then there's some neighborhoods though where it's 100% of the lots within the neighborhood would actually qualify.
That very much could be the case, Councillor Wiley, and I think our map did spook some people when we showed potential
Spooked me.
garden suites. It showed the ability for people to apply to the approving authority, not guaranteed approval.
Okay, thank you. I do have a motion, but if there's still more questions.
Are there any more questions from council for Chuck? Then I'll turn to Councillor Wiley for a motion.
And now I'm going to make this motion, and it's open to amendments, and I'll explain the potential amendment after I make it. I move that council direct administration to prepare a land use bylaw amendment removing the garden and garage suite uses from our low-density residential districts, and that council direct admin to schedule a public hearing. If I may speak to that?
Sure.
So I think the potential amendment could be another councillor might remove my part about the scheduling a public hearing and just put in that they would like to see it at a committee of the whole. I'm in favor of just going ahead with it because I think I'm assuming, maybe wrongly, that most members of council already know where they stand on the potential amendment. And so that's why I went ahead and made it for a public hearing. But do I need to repeat it for any of the councillors?
Any councillors need...
Or for legislative services?
Yeah, okay, for leg services.
Okay, so here we go. I move the council direct administration to prepare a land use bylaw amendment removing the garden and garage suite uses from our low-density residential districts. Are you ready for the second half? And the council direct administration to schedule a public hearing. And I do have some more comments on that.
Okay.
I think this is a good motion. Keep in mind, I voted in favor of the garden and garage suites in June or July of 2024. But as the mayor said, Strathmore's housing inventory has dramatically changed. Many new subdivisions are coming in, and there's a lot of multi-use developments coming. I've also, when I first started talking to residents about this way back in 2021, people were telling me, this sounds great, do it. That tone has completely changed in town. So not just the 600 plus people who signed the petition over the summer, but I keep hearing again and again and again that this is a bad idea. The third reason I'm making this motion is because I've come to understand something much better than I did 6-8 months ago. I've realized that no amount of new multi-units will solve the housing affordability crisis in Strathmore. As long as Calgary is bringing in 100,000 new residents every year, our housing supply will not keep up with that demand. We shouldn't be altering the look and feel of this town to try and solve something that is just completely not able to be solved in that way. So those are my 3 reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. I have Councillor Langmaid and then Councillor...
Sorry, Mayor,
Sorry,
could we
Scobel?
just have a 2-minute recess just to, we want to make sure that we've got the wording on the motion right?
Okay.
I just want to confer with the planners for 2 minutes.
So we're looking for a motion for a quick 2-minute recess? Councillor,
Can I ask a question first, because it's kind of related and might affect.
Okay.
So my question is, like, if we want, well, supposing I agreed with the motion, but I thought that it'd be good to have at least new developments have the option, how should I go about kind of putting that forward?
I think you would make an amendment to Councillor Wiley's. Maybe before the recess, maybe we can just answer it quickly. I guess my question, Councillor Wiley, just to be clear, you're saying all garage and garden suites, not the discretionary ones that the planners can approve?
Yeah, I don't mind having a recess to clarify that, because I would have follow-up questions.
I also have follow-up questions before I make a motion to recess, just for consideration. Councillor Wiley, your motion specifically identifies low-density residential districts, which, and I just want to clarify and make sure that I understand you right, those would be R1, R1N, R1S, and R2. It would not impact any parcels that are currently identified as central business district or R3 or high density that would be downtown. So downtown would ultimately be mostly unaffected and would remain able to build garden and garage suites bylaws. I'm not sure if that was I just wanted to clarify what your intention was with low density residential specifically.
So I see Mr. Proctor nodding. I stole the wording for this from page 16. If anyone wants to look at page 16, under the general, it said, if requested, staff will prepare a land use bylaw amendment removing the garden and garage suite uses from our low density residential districts. So I tried to use your wording. I see my land guy nodding, which means that is what I meant.
I hope that we got that right, Councillor Wiley.
Essentially, I'm looking to reverse what we did
Yes.
in the summer.
When we recess, I'll maybe suggest simplifying the motion, so it's just removing them from the land use bylaw. That might be the easiest way, because we have them as discretionary uses in R1, R1N, R1S, R2, R2X, and CR.
So over the recess, as long as the rest of council is over this, I would friendly amend my own thing to let administration and legislative services to make it work in the way that you're saying, so that we can undo what we did in the summer.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Langmaid with questions, and then Councillor Peterson.
Sorry, no questions. I thought we were just going to go for a quick recess.
Okay.
But if-
Did you have a question before?
Yeah, so in relevant to Councillor Wiley's motion and his subsequent comments, in terms of the areas that have been designated to where we have wanted to promote high density, those are the areas that I have heard people very concerned about possible rescinding of this motion. So they would not be affected. So the downtown south, the outer core, where we have consistently desired increased levels of density, they would not be affected by this rescinded motion.
Through the chair, Councillor Peterson, they would be affected by this motion. Only currently you can get a garden or garage suite in R1, R1N, R1S, R2, R2X, or CR. If we wanted to, we could add them to those districts, but that's just an idea. They're not existing
So for
today.
19 years, my question is, how could we incorporate that? Because for 19 years, we have been trying very, very diligently to increase the density in the downtown. And this is one of the ways it could possibly do this. In fact, it's a very efficient way. And the comments that I heard discussed in terms of, Councillor Wiley said that there was an overwhelming rejection of this bylaw. I've heard the opposite where I live, and the reason is not because of the fact that increased housing is going to ever solve the problems that we have. But what it does solve is this issue. A lot of the homes in the downtown, or the older homes, and in the outlying subdivisions of the downtown are owned by people that have lived in the community for a long, long time. And there is an understanding, as per Councillor Wiley's idea, that the children of these people will not be able to afford homes. And so one of the ways on these large lots in the downtown that we've wanted for 20 years to densify, this is a way that families can work together in order to provide their children with homes into the future. It's a way that children can also provide long-term spaces for seniors, which is also a burning issue in this community. So it concerns me, you know, that we are going to undo something that we've tried desperately to do for 2 decades. And so I think that there is some way to bring a process forward in a new land bylaw that would acknowledge that. That would be my hope. I can't support the motion as it is because of that, but I would look forward to your wisdom again.
Thank you. Councillor Wiley?
After hearing all the feedback, my hope would be is that another one of the councillors then would amend my motion and remove the part that council would direct admin to schedule a public hearing and change it to and bring it to a committee of the whole meeting. Am I able to amend my own motion? Okay, then I will amend my own motion to remove the council direct admin to schedule a public hearing and replace it with bring it to a future committee of the whole meeting.
Jonathan, are you understanding the wording of the new motion? And now that you've asked questions, do we still want to take that 2-minute recess?
I think we're okay because it's going to committee of the whole, like we can flesh out these different land use types and that now that it's going committee of the whole. So I think we can work with that. So.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion or debate? Deputy Mayor Mitzner?
I would like to bring discussion forward for the gallery and for the people at home to know that 80% of our subdivisions will not qualify for garden suites. So the majority of the concern is downtown. Our original agreement to this bylaw was to revitalize downtown, to have the garden suites, to have the people walking around, and I'm sorry, I refuse to go backwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do you want the motion reread, or are you good? Everyone good? You've removed you've amended it?
Yeah, so right now we would be just voting on the amendment to bring it. The amendment says we'll bring it to the committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor to bring that amendment to committee of the whole. All in favor? Okay, against? So that motion is carried. And now we have the full motion on the floor. So we'll put
Would you like me to reread it, or
Yes,
are we good?
please. That would help me.
I move the council direct administration to prepare a land use bylaw amendment, removing the garden and garage suite uses from our low-density residential districts, and that administration bring it to a future committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Chuck. We move now to item 5, closed meeting. We'll need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Wagoner?
I move that council move in camera to discuss items related to sections 24(1)A, section 23(1)A, 24(1)A, and 24(1)A)(B)(1), and 27(1)A of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act at 6:56.
Thank you for the motion. All in favor? And we are going in camera at 6:55.